Hello, everybody. Tracy Mrs. JDog Flanagan with you here today. I'm the co-founder and senior vice president at JDog Brands. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tactical Treasures podcast, sponsored by the JDog Foundation. Our podcast gives the military community a voice in the veteran space to share stories of service, how they continue to make a difference in civilian life, and they share with me a tactical treasure that has shaped their journey in their military career, business, or life. Today, I am honored to speak with Jordan Ames, who is a strategic leadership coach, retired Marine Raider, and the founder of Red Letter Leadership. Drawing from a 21-year career in U.S. Marine Special Operations, including over 80 direct action missions, Jordan now equips entrepreneurs, executives, and ministry leaders to bridge the gap between tactical action and high-level vision. As a co-author of Red Letter Leadership and co-host of the Namesake podcast, Jordan is dedicated to building executable strategies rooted in conviction. Beyond his professional work, he serves on his church leadership board and supports counter-human trafficking efforts in Uganda. Jordan and his wife Sarah live with their 7 children, 6 of whom are adopted. Hello, Jordan. Thank you for coming on Tactical Treasures podcast. And thank you so much for your service to our country, sir.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you and hopefully add some value to your audience.
Yeah, there's so much going on with you. I'm excited we have a lot to talk about here. But I would first like to ask, what inspired you to join the Marine Corps?
Oh wow! So my dad was a career-long police officer, and he never served in the military, but he went into Marine Corps OCS training for the 6 weeks, and then decided he didn't want to pursue that route. He was in college, didn't really know what he wanted to do. But he had cousins that were in the Marines. My uncle on my mom's side was in the Marines. My brother joined when I was like 12. So I just was like, I was growing up with a dad who was a police officer, and I just was like feeling drawn to that military law enforcement type of thing. And Marines was just, they're the best. They're the this, they're the that. So I was like, I even went to Air Force Recruiter in high school just to like, I don't know, just to look into, but I was like, no, I want to go in the Marines.
Well, and the dress blues are pretty cool too. So, I've heard
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so is there a particular aspect or moment from your service that stood out as being impactful in a positive way for you?
That's tough. I've just had so many great opportunities and really just served with so many amazing people. To think of one, I really think my transition from so I joined into the security forces field. And my transition from there into Marine reconnaissance, which then I was with Second Force Reconnaissance Company. They became Marine Special Operations. That that transition, I think, was a big life shift for me because I mentioned in high school I went to the Air Force Recruiter. I was looking at one of their special operations jobs, and as a junior in high school, I was like, it just seems too intense, too much for me. I'm going to go in the Marines. I'm going to go the path I kind of already planned to. Um, but it was around my like age 20 or so, I started thinking about this whole special operations type of line of work is really something that I was becoming passionate about. And so just that shift, getting through the training and being in that community, really shaped the rest of my career. If I didn't do that, I was done. I was moving on, go to college, probably go into law enforcement, like do something like that. But that really shaped, I think, the rest of my career and gave me opportunities that I would have never had before.
Sure, sure, yeah. Um, I love that. I think that's a great answer. And we hear that a lot, I think service really does change you and can have the ability to really shape your life as you move forward and transition out. Um, so
Yeah.
when you got out, you started you retired, by the way, and started in a veterans nonprofit space. But now
I
you're
did.
founder of Red Letter Leadership, and it's to me, it's more than just a company. I would love to know how it came about and what that journey was like.
Sure. So I'm a person of faith. I was raised in Christian home, raised in Christian values, and I've always sought to grow closer to my walk with Jesus. And so as I was retiring, like from the time I was 18 until I'm retiring at, what was I, 39, the military is what I've known. I've always felt like I had the purpose there. So now I'm retiring. I'm like, all right, Lord, I'm 39. Like, what do you have for me? A lot of my peers would get out, get their MBA, and then go get some corporate job. And I was like, that's just not me. I'm not. I don't want to be, going to some office 9 to 5, and I don't know. It just didn't. It didn't fit. And I really felt Lord calling me into leadership development space. Again, I'm looking at retire. I don't even know what that really looks like. So I start kind of researching, just figuring out what that space looks like, and I learn about the consulting firms that are out there and what they do, and coaching. I never heard of coaching as like a practice. So I learned about that, and then of course the speaking. A lot of these coaches, consultants, speaking is like just part of what they do. Some people are speakers, and that's like their full time thing, but um, so I got in this space. I ended up joining the John Maxwell leadership team, which is a phenomenal organization, and just getting plugged in with that community really opened my eyes to what this space looked like. Um, but really, I felt drawn to more of a faith-driven, faith-based, Christ-centered leadership brand. And again, not even knowing what that looks like, and not even knowing what was already out there. There's a lot of nonprofit entities kind of in that space. There's also for-profit entities in that space. So things I was learning, along the way. But I remember one day praying in the fall of 2023, like, Lord, where do I start with this? What do you want me to do with this? How can I truly add value to people by bringing the leadership of Jesus, and helping them, see Jesus as the true source of good leadership. And I just remember him saying to me, like, start in the red letters. So I just started for myself, really taking notes, as I started in Matthew 1, kind of journeying through the Gospels. And then I could put these together in little lessons, and then, like, send them out on an email. And I decided to do that 7 days a week. So not so much a weekly newsletter, but an actual, like, lesson devotional type 7 days a week. So I started doing that at the beginning of January 2024, and then I asked two gentlemen, two military guys. One just retired from the Marine Corps, and another one's retiring from the Army here shortly. I asked them if they wanted to join me in this, and they were all about it. They helped me out with that, and for me it was, I asked them for two reasons, like to help me with the workload, but also offer other perspectives that, of course, I'm just one person. I want to give my perspective. So they added a lot of value to it, and whenever we were writing those lessons and pushing them out, we didn't really think anything into the future with it. But as we started into, like, the book of John, and we're like, okay, what might we do after this? Do we find another book of the Bible and do the same thing? And we really got encouraged and inspired by how much value it was bringing to people, to put it into a single volume book, and we were able to release that last year. So um, it was a great journey and project, and I grew a lot in it. And so now we're just praying that Lord uses it to reach people that we'll never meet. That's a great thing about a book, I
Right.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that was going to be my next question. Red letter, where did that come from? So the red letters are the Gospels that document Christ's life, right?
So not all versions of the Bible that are put out there in print have Jesus's words in red. I have an NIV
Okay.
version that has it in red that I've had for decades. I have another Bible, the NASB, the New American Standard Bible, that doesn't have the words in red. So some
Right.
people don't realize that some Bibles have Jesus' words in red, and then of course there's a lot that do. But yeah, it's the actual words that the recordings of the Gospels and in other parts of the Bible that that are attributed to Jesus speaking.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there are Bibles out there because I have an NIV version and it's Life Application NIV version Bible
Okay.
and it doesn't have red letter, but that's interesting. So, and you say that if we look at the life of Christ and the what he spoke and what he taught, that there's actually lessons of leadership in there that
Oh yeah,
most
100%.
people would not even realize.
And we
Correct?
found we so yes, ma'am. So we went into it understanding a lot of people when they think of Jesus' leadership, believers and non-believers both, they think, well, he was a great servant leader. The whole servant leadership
Right.
um, idea has really come to the surface in the past 2 decades. People in the '90s, I don't think people really talked much about that. They talk about management, but not the servant leadership concept. And when we think of Jesus, that's what you think of. And 100%, like there's so much we can take from him, from servant leadership specifically, and the concepts and the really the mindset and the attitude behind that. But I believe that there is so much more in just leading in terms of influence, how we influence people for positive things, whether we're like a position over them or not. But there's so much when it comes to organizational leadership that we can take, and developing other leaders. And so that was our belief. And the whole project was, we went on that belief and we said, we're going to pull a leadership lesson out of every single passage. We're not going to skip one. We're going to pull one out of every single passage. And we want to show people that he truly is the source of all leadership. And we only need to just study it more and go to
Right.
it from that perspective.
You have the book. Great. But
Mm-hmm.
is there an actual course that people can take like based on the book?
There isn't yet. We've kind of talked about. So we started a podcast in January. We said, okay, the
Okay.
book's out there. Uh, Maybe a podcast is a good way to expound on each lesson every week, have a discussion about it, and just really give our listeners the opportunity to um, have the value of those leadership lessons, but give it more meat than just like a couple paragraphs in the book. So we started that podcast. A course, or of course there's like a online community is a popular way of bringing knowledge and stuff. So
Hmm.
that could be in the future where we develop some sort of course. I developed a coaching program specifically for helping people, what I call cast a big God-sized vision and a seemingly impossible vision, for whether it's for their life or maybe it's an entrepreneur for their business. And like, they feel God wants to take them in this direction, but it just seems overwhelming. I think a lot of people stop there because they're just afraid of what that future holds. There's the doubt, and spiritual warfare is a real thing. And that's what's happening, is that doubt is seeping in. It's the enemy. And he's saying, that's probably not what you really want to be doing. You probably should just do something that's comfortable. And that keeps us from the growth that God wants to take us to. So that's the coaching program that I currently offer, is to help people cast that vision. That's the first step. And then build an actual strategy to it, and begin to implement that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Great. Um, a lot going on here. So now
Yeah.
from, there's something that's called the Red Letter Pursuit, which is a nonprofit. But I did that come out of, I mean, you have an amazing family. 7 children,
Thank you.
6 are adopted. I mean,
They're
so
incredible kids.
is that kind of all rolled together why you decided to found this nonprofit?
Kind of. So the nonprofit is a counter human trafficking mission in East Africa. And when I was coming out of off my first job, when I retired, I took that job of a veteran organization that you had mentioned at the beginning. And when I left that job about a year later, it wasn't the right fit for me, having some friction here and there. And again, I had that calling. I felt like I needed to be in the leadership development space. So I left that job. And a gentleman I had known before who had his own counter human trafficking nonprofit locally here in Pennsylvania, where I am, but he was doing things internationally and also trying to get some initiatives started locally. So he started this mission in East Africa, and a couple of months after he started it is when I left that job, and he heard that I left the job, so he reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, can you manage this while I work on some of these other initiatives?" I said, "Yeah, I can do that. A couple hours a week, volunteer my time, pretty much." Um, and then by January of that year, so same time I'm starting to write these leadership lessons, he decides that he's going to step away from his organization. The only thing going was this mission he asked me to manage. It started to take off that year, but the board decided to dissolve the organization. So long story short, agreement fell through to move it over to another organization. And I said, "Look, we started this. We can't turn the light out on this." And the counter trafficking mission, just confronting that evil, that idea to confront evil is something that really drove me into the special operations community. And as I retired, that passion to do so kind of pushed me into the counter trafficking work. And so I just said, "Look, I'll take it on. I'll figure out how we're going to build this thing, give it long-term sustainability. However, I need to stay on and work that." So I took it over fully in August of 2024, and I really am still working to establish that long-term sustainability structure. Red Letter Pursuit is not its own 501c3. It actually is a project that falls under a great organization called Tying Vines. They are a registered 501c3, and they have probably around 30 or some projects throughout the world that are ministries. They're addressing humanitarian aid, crisis response type things. They're doing great work all over the place. And they kind of provide an administrative overhead so that all these different projects can work in these very politically sensitive or hostile type areas, like places throughout the Middle East and Africa and Asia and places like that. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into and I just rebranded it as a Red Letter Pursuit. One, because I didn't really want to think too much about brand. I just wanted to call it something so that, considering operational security, we don't have to identify the organization that is registered in its own host nation over in Africa. They're registered. They are a local organization there. But we want to be able to tell the details of the stories without compromising their identity and locations and stuff. So that's more or less why we chose to kind of have a brand.
You spent years following a mission. You understand discipline, grit, and the power of a team. But what happens when the uniform comes off? For the veteran and the military family, the desire to serve doesn't just disappear. At JDog, we don't just offer a job. We offer a new mission. We provide a proven path for you and your family to own a business that operates on the values you live by: respect, integrity, and trust. Join a national brotherhood of veterans and military families who are reclaiming their futures and leading their communities. Your next chapter isn't just about a career. It's about building a legacy. To learn more, go to jdog.com. Yeah. And you have a lot of children.
I do. They're older now. I have more adults than I do children.
I know. Well, some of them are serving, correct?
One is in his A school in the Navy. So he's an information specialist, and he's going through that training now. And then the other just got out of the Marine Corps. He got out after 5 years. He was an embassy guard for a couple of years, and then he was in the infantry and did a deployment with the infantry. And he got out in December, and now he's going through the the state police process to become a state trooper.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, we're very
Wow.
proud.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
Yeah,
That's an
thank
amazing.
you.
I love the story um, of how your and you have some great pictures of your family. I think it's awesome. I really love what you're doing. I think I need to get the Red Letter Leadership book. It
Please,
sounds
please,
it
I got a
sounds
copy of it
very
right here. Yeah, this is what it looks like.
okay. All
There it is.
right. Well, I need
Yeah.
to get that and read up on it. It sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
It is
because again,
a book to take just small chunks out of your day to read and kind of think about the lessons. It's not a,
right.
I'm going to read it the next couple of weeks. It's a year or multi-year read.
Got it. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you for the heads up for that. But it sounds very
Sure,
interesting
sure.
because you're right. I mean, how many times have, we heard that, Christ is a servant leader and he
Hmm.
leads by humility and humbleness and all of that. And but I'm sure it's so rich with more leadership lessons than we even know. So sounds like
Yeah.
a really
I could
great
offer
book.
a little tidbit on one of the lessons.
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
I
so
would
I'm
love
just
an
thinking.
example.
I mean, we talk about like, um, there's a lesson called seeing the bigger picture. We talk about communication and
Mhm.
responding to opposition and facing adversity, those type of things. But I'm just thinking of I mentioned how I have a coaching program to help people cast a God-sized vision and then of course build strategy and stuff. Well, there's a lesson in the book that I titled Casting Vision, and it comes out of Mark chapter 5, where Jesus is crowds are pressing in on him. He's been healing, he's been preaching and stuff, so they know who he is. And this one synagogue ruler comes to him. His name is Jairus, and Jairus is like, I think she's 12, but Jairus's young daughter is dying, has a sickness. And by the time he finally gets to Jesus to like ask Jesus to heal her, she's of course back at his house. Um, Jairus's friends come up and be like, "Hey, don't bother him anymore. She passed away." And then Jesus doesn't wait for Jairus to say another thing. He hears what they said, and he said, "Don't be afraid, just believe." So he tells Jairus, and it's like when I say it's a lesson on casting vision, because God is pretty much telling Jairus right there, like, look,
Mhm.
you've seen me heal all these people, and that's what your understanding of reality is. Your understanding that's what I can do. And so his friends say, well, he's passed away, don't bother him. So even his friends said, certainly Jesus can heal, but now the girl passed away, so there's no bother. Let's just go deal with the funeral. And Jesus is like, I want to speak a new reality into you. I want to take you to a new place, a new future that you don't even understand yet. And so that's one of many throughout Scripture where
Mhm.
God's really showed me recently how so many times He wants to take us to a new reality that we can't even understand or see. He just wants us to believe and start taking steps of action there. And that's probably one of my favorite lessons from the book. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that.
Sure, sure.
You're right. It's okay. You've seen me do all of this. Now here's a new reality. In other words, how big is Jesus? He's bigger than we can even imagine, and he can do
Yeah,
more than we even imagine that he can do, right? But
yeah. Amen.
I think there's hundreds of places in the Bible where God says, "Do not be afraid, do not fear, do not,"
Hmm.
it's so
Yeah,
constant, right? But our feeble minds, we're so fearful,
yeah.
right? Because it's a
And
scary
it's the
world out
enemy.
there
We also have to
sometimes.
recognize that. Like, yes,
Yeah.
we're humans, and so the enemy's stronger than us. He's
Hmm.
the one speaking that doubt. It started in Genesis 3. Like, did
Right.
God really say that? Like
Yeah.
maybe think about something else. Let's be
Right.
realistic here.
Yeah. Did he really say you shouldn't eat from that fruit on
Right,
that tree?
right.
Maybe it
Yeah.
was a suggestion.
Yeah.
Will you really die? Yeah,
Exactly. No, he said that. Will you
I
really
know
die?
he
Yeah.
did. Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
Um, Jordan, this has been amazing. I love what you're doing. I can't wait to get my hands on the book and get started.
Thank you. Thank you
Um,
so much.
and I, but you know, we're the Tactical Treasures podcast. So we've come to the time in the podcast where I have to ask you the very important question. What is your tactical treasure that has helped you in your journey in the military, in your life? What is your mantra? What would you
Oh,
like to share with us today?
that's a great question. I love that you asked that. I love that you asked that of your guests. I would say one thing that has always driven me whenever I was just looking into like what might be next or what can I do, what can I do. The one thing that's always driven me is that if somebody else did it, like when I talk about, you know, setting a God-sized impossible objective. Well, the thing about it being impossible is it might be impossible to me, but someone else probably has a lot of expertise or have done it before or something. Um, and that has always driven me, the idea that somebody else has walked this path. And if I can't find anybody else that has walked that path, well, then God steps in and keeps pushing me forward. And it's like, look, just trust me. I'll introduce you. I'll resource you. I'll keep moving you along. Um, so yeah, that has always driven me. It's like, don't tell me it can't be done. Don't say that because I'm going to say I'm going to figure out how it can be done, and I'm going to keep moving in that direction.
I love that. That's a great tactical treasure. If the door's open, you got to walk through it and you got to trust that that door's opened for a reason. But if you're not,
Yeah, and
I
it's
always, you can't be afraid to, I just heard something today. You can't be afraid to fail. You know what I mean?
absolutely,
Because even God can use our failures. But I always trust that if I'm not, that He'll shut a door. And believe me, when He shuts it hard,
yeah,
you have to, you definitely know that, okay, that door is shut. Okay, there's a reason for that, right? So,
yeah, yeah. That's a. I mean, that's a. There's a huge lesson there about failure, right? We see failure a lot as, oh, poor me, and it causes, doubt and worry, whatever. But sometimes we just need to see it as a door close and see it as a redirection towards something better, something that's more meaningful, something that we're more passionate about, something where we're a better fit. Um, yeah. So yeah,
yeah.
I like the military, I guess, tactic of exploiting success, right? Like when we're on the battlefield and we're pushing past the enemy lines in one area, but we're getting bogged down in another. Well, we want to exploit that success, and yeah, it's the same thing with an open door. Walk through it. With a closed door, it's redirection. Go find the open door.
Right, right. Great
Yeah,
words of wisdom. I love it. Um, and
thank
that
you.
was a good segue into my next question. So,
All
any
right.
advice for your fellow veterans struggling post service?
Get in a community because that's the one thing that I still say I miss whenever I retired. What I missed the most was the camaraderie. I was just down in North Carolina about a month ago and at a retirement ceremony, and it was just great seeing guys I haven't seen in decades. But it was a weekend, and I came back up here, and it's like, man, when will we connect again? When will we get together again? Um, but I've made other friends, in Pennsylvania. I've stayed connected with some in the military. But it's just, yeah, we are all relational beings. And I tell people the main theme of scripture from Genesis 1 to Revelations is relationships. First with God, then with others. That's why it's such a great book on leadership, because it's all about relationships. Why? Because we're relational beings. We are designed to be with others and be in community with others. And sadly, that's where, a lot of veterans, they are so valuable, but they don't know how to, and it's something I'm still learning. They don't know how to express that value to others, and so they kind of sometimes get seen as not as valuable. And yeah, but the biggest thing is getting in that community with others, and the best way to do that is to serve. Go find some area to serve, and people will see your value. You'll start to find the people that you like being around, and you'll be in the right community.
I love that. That's great advice. Yeah, isolation. I've heard isolation kills.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So, um, yeah, it's a matter of finding your new tribe, whatever that looks like.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, so Jordan, before you go, can you tell us where people can find and connect with you, where they can find out more information on Red Letter Leadership? And of course, where can they find your podcast?
Sure. So you can actually find all that on my website, which is www.redletterleadership.com. I have uh, a tab for the podcast at the top. So you can actually download it right off the website. You can go to wherever you like to listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. And then we also have a YouTube channel, which is at Red Letter Leadership. Yeah, so we've been having a blast with it. We've been getting in discussion. We started getting some guests on. So our first guest was Ed Graham with Samaritan's Purse, the chief operating officer. Ben Hunter, who was a co-author of mine with the book, is good friends with Ed, and they served together in the Rangers for many years. And then I actually just did an interview with one of my old company commanders who wrote the book A Few Bad Men. His name's Fred Galvin. That podcast will be dropping here. Well, by the time this one comes out, it probably would have already dropped. But yeah, so we're looking forward to having more guests on, and how we can just again expound on the value that Jesus already provided.
Right. I love it. That's great. Jordan, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for all you're doing, and how you're continuing to spread the word um, about how lessons from the life of Christ in Red Letter Leadership can help
Thank you, Tracy.
entrepreneurs and people. So I appreciate you and all you're doing. Thank you so much for your time today.
And thank you so much for having me. It was great to have this opportunity to share with your audience.
Thank you. Take care. Hello, viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Tactical Treasures Podcast. We've just finished up a very enlightening and interesting conversation with Jordan Ames, who is a strategic leadership coach, retired Marine Raider, and the founder of Red Letter Leadership. He is dedicated to shaping both strategy and soul as the founder of Red Letter Leadership and co-author of the book, Red Letter Leadership, Leadership Lessons from the Life of Christ. Beyond the page, Jordan serves as a strategic leadership coach and consultant, partnering with entrepreneurs, executives, and church teams to help them see, set, and seize God-sized objectives. Whether he's casting vision or building strategy, his goal is to help leaders intentionally shape the environments they lead. You can also hear more from Jordan as the co-host of the Red Letter Leadership Podcast, a show designed to help listeners grow closer to Christ while sharpening their leadership edge. But his impact goes far beyond the boardroom. As a project consultant for Red Letter Pursuit, he works on the front lines of the fight against human trafficking in East Africa. Since January 2024, RLP's incredible efforts have led to the rescue of over 330 children from trafficking, the arrest of over 70 suspects, the graduation of nearly 100 survivors from vocational training, empowering them to build honest, sustainable lives in their home countries. To learn more or get involved, visit redletterleadership.com for coaching and resources, and redletterpursuit.org to support the mission in East Africa. Again, thank you for tuning in. And don't forget, you can find Tactical Treasures Podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms. Our website, tacticaltreasurespodcast.com, as well as our dedicated YouTube channel. As an official radio partner, Tactical Treasures is airing on Reese Across America Radio on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern for the encore. You can find Reese Across America Radio on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app. JDog is honored to be an official Reese Across America sponsorship group. When you sponsor a $17 Veterans Wreath through our group, $5 goes straight to the JDog Foundation to help heal our heroes. Your contribution directly supports our mission to prevent veteran suicide and provide lasting mental health and PTS resources. You can donate right now at reaseacrossamerica.org/JDog. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again on another podcast real soon. Bye-bye now.